Well, it is a beautiful day, at least in our neck of the woods. A little chilly. Winter seems to be arriving early this year, much to my chagrin. I would like winter to limit itself to, let's say, maybe the week before Christmas through the end of February. That would be perfect. Rest of the year, be nice if it's in the 50s and 60s, and then of course summertime, but I don't generally get my wish when it comes to that. But it's good to be with you. Hope you had a great weekend and looking forward to a week of fun in the sun, the SON, right? Come on. Who knows what adventures await us as we walk with him. So let me say good morning to my breakfast club. You guys are just amazing. I love how you all jump in here. Rosa, good morning. Ted, good afternoon. Donna and Jack, good morning to you. Maria, good morning. Linda, my goodness, shalom indeed. Thank you guys. I do appreciate your company as I do these things morning by morning. So today I want to move into kind of a different topic, talking about our mindset and the general kind of noise, I guess you could call it, that we have in our brains, in our minds, every day. We all have a mindset. We all have several mindsets. I wish it weren't true, but when James wrote about us being double-minded, he wasn't kidding. We can have several different mindsets in our thinking that are operative at any one particular time. Usually, when you have the double-minded situation, it's because you're trying to move in a particular direction. And so you have your thoughts focused on that. But then you've got this other part of you that is saying, why are you doing this? Who do you think you are? You're not going to be able to do, all the negative stuff. And this year I've been doing a lot of research on how our minds affect our brain and our body and, all this kind of thing that I think a lot of us don't really pay much attention to. I mean, some of it is admittedly pretty geeky when it comes to the science. You have to really love, that scientific approach to be able to dig into it. But there's some really interesting stuff out there that I think is very helpful. You might want to look into some of the books by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She's been doing some amazing stuff over the past 20 or 30 years, I think. And she's only recently started to become more well-known than she was in the past. But it's powerful. The way we think, the general kind of thoughts that we have really do impact the kind of life that we live. I can't get into the depths of this because but it's so true. The Bible talks about how we have these things called strongholds, right? 2 Corinthians 10. I've talked about some of this probably when we were doing Ephesians, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. But this idea of a stronghold is just another way of saying a mindset. And it literally is a way of thinking that stands in opposition to the truth of God. When Paul describes it, he talks about speculations. He talks about every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God. So it's an idea, it's a thought process that is born out of our human reasoning. And listen, God gave us a mind. You don't, when you get saved, you don't take your mind and, check it at the door and say, okay, I'm just going to, be a mindless robot here and whatever God says I'm going to do. No, he created us with a mind and with the capacity to comprehend, to analyze, to look at things and ponder them, meditation, right? All these different things are activities of the mind. And so when the Bible talks about speculations, it's talking about my opinions, my ideas that are coming from my limited knowledge about things. Yet, even though my knowledge is limited, even though I don't know everything, even though there are many things that I have yet to learn, I can nonetheless come up with these ironclad conclusions that form the basis of my opinions about things. And I can be totally sincere in my heart that, yes, this is the truth. I believe it. Yet I end up sincerely wrong. It's an amazing thing. And usually when you look at these things, right, the second part of this is that it's a lofty thing that's raised up against the knowledge of God. Well, what is that talking about? Well, anytime I have an opinion or an idea, a mindset that runs counter to the truth, yet I will defend that to the death. No, this is what I believe. This is what's true. I know it's true, right? What we're doing is we're actually raising that up, and serving it becomes like an idol. We raise it up, that this idea, right, is so true to me, even though it's false, right? It's wrong. It's something the enemy agrees with. I can hold it up and raise it up to such an extent that it actually blocks my ability to hear from the Lord. It's raised up against the knowledge of God. It's preventing me from knowing who God is for me. And we'll get into some of this, as we go forward here, but I'm just trying to lay this foundation for you so you understand what we do in our minds to create a mindset that, we think it's absolutely right, it's absolutely true. It's like, well, sure, of course, there's no doubt about this, whatever this thing is that we're believing. But yet, because it comes out of our understanding, it comes out of our limited knowledge of the truth, we form these opinions that we hold to so tightly. And it's a matter really of our pride. It's like, well, no, I can't be wrong, right? I can't be wrong. And that's why it's a lofty thing. It's something that we've raised up in our own prideful thinking that, yes, I know the truth here and you can't tell me different. Who do you think you are trying to correct me? No, it's like, oh, it can be bad. But again, it gets raised up, it gets placed in a position in us where, because that's what I've chosen to believe, it blocks me from really receiving the truth until the Holy Spirit figures out how to get in there. He doesn't figure out, he knows, but I'm saying he knows how to get behind that wall that we've put up, that stronghold, right? And just begin to gently, hey, maybe there's a different way of looking at this. Maybe there's a different perspective. Maybe what you've been thinking isn't exactly the truth. And he's so persistent in such a gentle, loving way that, either that or he just blasts us. It just depends on who we are and what he's trying to accomplish in our lives. Best example of that, of course, would be Paul before he became Paul. When he was Saul, he's just basically on his way to Damascus to arrest more Christians and throw them in jail and hopefully see them killed, right? And he gets knocked off his donkey and has this amazing encounter where all of a sudden now everything that he believed was challenged and refuted by none other than Jesus Christ. So, I'm not going to tell you how God will do it for you. I just know that he will, because he wants us to be absolutely set free from the lies that we believe, right? When Jesus described Satan, He said that he is the father of lies. This is from John 8:44. He's talking to the Pharisees. And, sometimes when you hear Jesus talking to these guys, it's like, oh, man, that you just like slapped him right across the face. He says, you are of your father, the devil. But clearly it had reached a point where there was just going to be no reconciliation. There was going to be no opportunity, for any meaningful dialogue with these guys. So when that happens, you just hit them, right between the eyes and, you know, um, so he's describing Satan. Says he was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So this is not some minor issue, right, of what I choose to believe. And if I'm not thinking right, or believing something that's wrong, that's a lie in my life, oh, it's okay, who cares, we're all learning and growing, and God doesn't matter to God. Well, no, it does. I mean, the language that Jesus uses here is so graphic, it's so pointed, that Satan was a murderer from the beginning. And we know that a little bit later on in this gospel, in John 10:10, he basically says that the devil, he only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I mean, come on, you can't get much more graphic than that in describing the intent of this enemy that we have. The devil hates us. He hates us because we now have what he lost. He had an intimate relationship with the Father from eternity past up until the time that he rebelled. He was right up there, in the throne room, and part of, just, it's hard to even describe, but he lost all of that. And now he just hates our guts, because God has given that to us, that we have that same access that he had. So the devil's desires for us are to believe lies that will destroy us, lies that will kill us, right? Lies that will rob us of our inheritance as sons and daughters, that will steal away blessing that the Lord has for us. And it's all because we choose to think in certain ways that don't align with the truth of the Word of God. And when that happens, we are giving unconscious, most cases, unconscious permission for the enemy to do what he wants. Why? Because we're in agreement with him. If let's say, for example, I believe that I have committed the unpardonable sin and God could never forgive me, and I live my life in that place of terror and fear, that I'm condemned, I've been damned to hell, there's no way that I can ever be redeemed. Well, all of that's a lie. All right. It's totally a lie. Because if the moment you receive Christ, you can no longer commit the unpardonable sin, because the unpardonable sin is rejecting Jesus. But people have been screwed up by this, passage where Jesus talks about the unpardonable sin. And it's been taught, people have been taught that, you have to be careful, because, you never know when you might do the unpardonable sin, and then all hope is lost. So people get completely jacked up by that kind of a lie, and it destroys their life. I mean, someone who is so overwhelmed by that, you could easily see why they might commit suicide. And there you go. The devil just killed somebody through a lie. And it happens all the time. Folks that are under bondage to any kind of addiction, and especially addictions that are lethal, in their outcome. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a mindset that says, wow, this is cool. I'm going to do this. I'm going to enjoy this drug, or I'm going to whatever, and the person is completely unaware that they've just stepped into an arena where they're about to lose control of their life because they're now going to be controlled by some chemical or some other thing that is addictive, right? So it's not hard to understand when you look at it from that standpoint that the mindset that we have is critical to whether or not we're going to have any measure of success in our lives. If I'm thinking in ways that the devil agrees with, well, it gives him access to make those thoughts actually happen. I continually think there's something wrong with me and I'm a failure, right? Well, devil loves that kind of thinking. And so he's going to amplify and reinforce that mindset so that you never feel like you can do anything of significance. You're just gonna live a life of mediocrity and struggle and striving, and just nothing of any major significance will happen in your life. Why? Because you are thinking that that's all you are, right? There's a powerful little proverb. Proverbs 23:7 says, for as a man thinks in himself, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Boy, that's a verse you want to get a hold of. As you think in your heart, that's who you are. That's what it's saying. That our thoughts ultimately determine the kind of people that we are, what we're capable of. God's put tremendous potential in every single person. He's God, for Pete's sake. He created every single one of us. He knew what he was doing when he made us. He put all this awesomeness in us that we can do amazing things with our life. Yet, so many people never achieve that. They never even come close to their God-given potential because of a mindset that actually dictates the course of their life. Well, this is all I can expect. I am just a sinner saved by grace, and I'll never get past all these weaknesses that I have. I'm just it's so difficult for me to live the Christian life, and I just give up. I'm just gonna, hope and pray that someday God accepts me into heaven. There's so many kinds of false ideas that affect how we see ourselves and how we choose to live our lives. And again, it's all wrapped up in this idea of a mindset. I think it was Friday, we were looking at another proverb, 4:23, where I talked about guarding your heart, right? It says, watch over your heart with all diligence. And that's important. But what we're talking about now really is the second half of that verse. For from your heart, flow the springs of life. Now, in this context, the heart is not talking about the pump, all right? It's talking about you at your core, the sum of your mind, will, and emotions, all that makes up who you are, your personality, your character traits, right? All of that from that flow the springs of life. I love that picture because we think of springs as this wonderful flow of water that brings quenching of thirst and refreshing and so much, right? Jesus talked about rivers of living water coming out of our innermost being. But the idea here is that our mindset, how we generally think, how we generally see life, and how we generally see ourselves is the determining factor as to what kind of life we're going to live. And guys, this is so important that you get it. People want to be passive, concerning their Christian life and just simply say, well, God's in control, and, if he wants it to happen, it'll happen. That's fatalism. That is not walking in faith, because a faith walk is a partnership with him where I am renewing my mind so I can agree with what he wants so that it can happen. He is not going to force his will on you or anybody. It's not how it works. God is not up there, ordering every single detail of your life. That's up to you and I. He's given us that responsibility. And whatever is happening in my life, right, for the most part, it's because I chose it out of my mindset, out of the things that I chose to think about and focus on and believe. I am constructing a life for myself based on all of that. And I know that may sound shocking and even heretical, but when you understand that we're called to renew our minds, then it all begins to make sense. Well, why would God put so much emphasis on that? It's because we have to be able to agree with him so that he can do what he wants to do. He gave us free will. He is not going to overrule our freedom of choice in what we think and what we believe. We've got to make that decision. We've got to come into that place of agreement with him so that in that agreement, he is now free to do everything that is in his heart to be done in our lives, because we're now cooperating, we're now partnering with him. So we'll talk more about this tomorrow. It's a big subject, and I don't know how long it'll take to get through it, but day by day. But be encouraged. The important thing here is that if you don't like where your thoughts have led you, have another thought. That's a direct quote from one of my favorite long distance mentors, Graham Cook. If you don't like where your thoughts have led you, have another thought, because there are always other ways to think, other thoughts to have, other beliefs to build into your heart and life. And that's the good news. Nobody's ever stuck. No one is ever trapped in their current circumstances, because God always has an answer. He always has a way out. And it's simply choosing to believe and agree with what he says about us and about our circumstances. So that is so good. Good morning to the rest of this Breakfast Club that has jumped in here as we were in process. Let's see, we have Patrice, good morning. Jane, good morning. Anne and Joanne and Melissa, how are you? Good to see you again. Marie and hey, Kathy, aloha. My goodness, Ralph and Rosa, Julissa, good morning. Joe and Fred and Jennifer, my goodness, a lot to chew on. Yeah, you got that right, my friend. But thank God, Holy Spirit, man, he's a genius at helping us get all this stuff if we just ask him for help, right? So, hey, have an awesome day. Almost forgot. Be my Share Bear buddy, if you would please, and share this with your friends. And if you want to reach out, hit me up, email or Facebook message. If you have any questions, or if you think I'm wrong, let me know. And we'll look forward to being back with you tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern. So till then, you be blessed.
Thank you.